What's up, Tar Heel Nation? Welcome back to the UNC Hoops Talk podcast. This is Gil Elhart, giving you a recap of last night's victory over Elon, 75-61 in the Dean Smith Center in Chapel Hill. Not the prettiest of games, certainly some cause for concern, and yet the good news is we're 4-0 on the young season. We have some competition ratcheting up, though, next week. Our next game is Wednesday against Alabama in the Battle for Atlantis there in Nassau, Bahamas. So I'll talk a little bit about how we match up with Alabama and who we might see there in the Battle for Atlantis. But back to last night's game against Elon. This was a game where we clearly had them overmatched in terms of size, in terms of talent, and I definitely expected, as I would suspect most Tar Heel fans suspected, would be a much bigger win than it was, particularly in the Dean Smith Center. We beat them by like 49 points there at Elon last year in an early season game, and I expected that we would win by close to 30 points. And to see us slug it out with them was slightly disheartening, particularly the way that we played in the first half. But the major thing is we're just not hitting shots. So we need to improve our field goal percentage. Let me see the stats on this real quick. Field goal percentage in the first half was 41%, and for the game, 42.6%. So that's just not great. 3-point percentage is an anemic 15.8% for the game. We need to do better. Cole Anthony played his heart out. He's a winner. I love what he brings every night. It wasn't his best game, wasn't his best performance so far, but he did flirt with a triple-double. He came close, and in all honesty, had several Tar Heel players made open looks, including a wide-open dunk by Garrison Brooks that was missed off a beautiful Cole Anthony feed. He would have had at least a double-double with rebounds and assists, which would have been a nice stat line. And he was just 1 point from getting double figures there on the scoring. So that was exciting. I was interested to see that Roy took him out with about a minute and a half or so to play while he was still flirting with that triple-double, although probably unlikely he was going to get it at that point, the way that the scoring was going, the way the field goal percentage was going. So really, really hopeful that Brandon Robinson comes back for the Battle for Atlantis and starts to get minutes against Alabama. We need some more continuity and more flow in our offense, and we certainly need to improve our field goal percentage, particularly from longer range. Andrew Platek had several open looks that were missed. Christian Keeling missed a look or two. Leaky Black missed a look or two. You know you're not going to hit them all, and Leaky Black did come back and make a three. I think he might have made two, actually, one in the first half, one in the second half. And Keeling made a nice look off of another Cole Anthony feed for a great elevation three-pointer in the secondary break in the first half. And we saw Keeling get more involved offensively going to the basket, and that's the way to build his confidence, get more easy buckets. I'm not sure what his line was. Let's see here. He finished with total points for Keeling was 9. Our leading scorer, of course, was Armando Bacot with 22 points and 14 rebounds, his best game, and I probably should have started with him because he was clearly the most positive sign for the Tar Heels last night. Double-double, his second double-double in a row, but this one much more polished. He showed his class offensively and certainly took advantage of his size, as he should against a competition like Elon. So he was a force both in the first half, but primarily in the second half. He not only had the 22 points, 14 rebounds, but also 3 blocks. So he was hustling, getting back, running the floor hard on both offense and defense, and I know Roy Williams is excited to see that and probably has much less critical things to say to Bacot after last night versus UNCW, or against Gardner-Webb. UNCW being the game where he got knocked out early with the blow to the head. So minutes-wise, the distribution, Garrison Brooks played the most minutes, about 33 and a half. Cole Anthony was over at 36 and a half, so still playing him a lot. And Mondo Bacot had 25, almost 26 minutes. You had Leaky Black with 28 minutes virtually, and Justin Pierce getting in 23, Playtech 18 and some change. So again, it's pretty much just a 7-man rotation. Huffman got about 5 minutes, and then of course some garbage minutes for other players coming in. Although it's good to see KJ Smith. He might come in valuable as backing up Cole Anthony at times. So I know that he was dealing with an ankle injury. So finally getting some minutes for him just to get on the court, get to move around, and start to be part of the offensive flow. So yeah, in summation of this game, it was pretty much just a dogfight for the first half. We couldn't hit shots. They were up by 9 points. We managed to take advantage of our size, get involved. Garrison Brooks was scoring a handful of mid-range and close-range buckets, and that kept us close, and we ultimately went into halftime down by a point. We started the second half on a big run. I believe it was something like 7-0 out of the break and something like 18-2 total out of the second half start. So that's what really opened up the game. They made a late run, an 8-0 run to close it within 8 points close to the end. And then we pushed it out with a couple big hot buckets before just finishing it off in the last minute and a half. So you expect better between UNC and Elon, 71-65, or 75-61 rather, excuse me. And we dominated the rebounding, particularly when you dominate a team and you have an advantage. I believe it's 56-23 was the rebounding. You expect to beat a team by much more than 15 points. Our bench needs to do more with Brandon Robinson coming back. Hopefully we'll start to see that. Playtech needs to get his confidence back with his stroke. He's not hitting open looks from 3-point, and we really need that out of him. I still appreciate his hustle, his defense. He's crashing the boards. So he's bringing good things to the team, and he's been an early positive sign for the team, but he's in a little slump shooting, so he needs to get out of that slump, start to hit those open looks. I thought Justin Pierce played a really great game. Speaking about the bench, he came off and he's really crashing the boards hard. 8 total rebounds, 3 offensive. So he's hitting the boards hard, and he ended up with just 2 points on the night. So I'd like to see more out of him. No, excuse me, that's Playtech with 2, Pierce with 8. So not bad, not bad. I'd like to see him getting close to double-double numbers, and I think we'd take maybe 8 points from him and 8 rebounds on most nights, but it'd be nice to see perhaps a handful more. But I love the way that he's coming in, crashing the glass, and getting those boards. Cole Anthony, of course, had 10 rebounds. Armando Bacot, our leading rebounder, with 14. Fast break points, we ended up with 15. Again, that's a number that we'd like to see higher. Interesting statistic is that we, for the first time under Roy Williams, have not eclipsed the 80-point mark in the first 3 games and now the first 4 games. So that's definitely atypical. Roy Williams wants to push the pace, and this team is just not getting those fast break opportunities. So some of these early season trends, which, it's the first game or 2, you're thinking, okay, no big deal. But now that we're starting to see it become more of a trend, such as the free throw percentage, which was 60% for the game, starts to raise eyebrows, starts to be a little bit of concern the more this goes on. Now, again, I'm not going to hit the panic button. It's early season. That's what the non-conference season is about. But again, the competition is about to step up significantly. So let's talk about that now. I don't think there's that much more to mention from the game last night. So we'll move on. We've got the battle for Atlantis, and our first opponent next Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. is Alabama. This will be an interesting matchup. First Power 5 besides the conference game against Notre Dame that we'll be going up against. And obviously we want to win. We want to move on. We want to see the overall appearance of the game look better from the Tar Heel perspective, offensive flow, getting more players involved. Again, hopefully Brandon Robinson coming back. I think that he's an excellent passer. I think that he can help stretch the floor, stretch the defense with better percentage 3-point shooting. And so I think that he'll be a very important asset for the remainder of the season and hopefully starting out in this battle for Atlantis tournament. Other teams that are there include Iowa State and Michigan. So one of those 2 teams will be our opponent in the second game, depending on whether we win and whether they win, or whether we lose or they lose, we'll still play. Oregon and Gonzaga are there. Seton Hall and Southern Miss will also be there. So here's the bracket. Winner of second game, and as I mentioned, we'll play either Michigan or Iowa State. And we have this history with Michigan. Juwan Howard is now their coach, who played on the Fab Five, who we beat in '93 for the national championship. So he'd have some extra motivation if they were to be playing us in that second game. And we owe a little bit of revenge to Iowa State for 2015, knocking out a Marcus Page-led team with a non-travel call right in the late seconds of the game for them to prevail. So I'd love to see a little redemption against them, to be honest. But first things first, we got to get by Alabama. So in the other half of the bracket is where Gonzaga will be playing Southern Miss in their first game. Seton Hall will be playing Oregon. So potentially, if we were to make it to the championship game, one might expect that Gonzaga would be there waiting, and that would be an interesting championship game rematch against the Bulldogs. And of course, we have them scheduled later in December. Oregon, who we beat in the Final Four in 2017, that could be interesting as well to go up against them. So some good competition there. We're going to need to improve. We're going to need to play better. I like the inside game that we got going on. That's one other thing from last night, is there was some great high-low passing between Baycott and Garrison Brooks. Also Pierce getting involved. I remember one specific play where Cole Anthony was out at the three-point line, fed it to Pierce, kind of a high pass, but Pierce immediately, nice drop bounce pass into Baycott, easy dunk, easy two. So starting to see that two big system really working out for Carolina. That's going to be something that's going to be hard for our opponents to deal with. But if we can't extend the defense, make our open looks from three-point range, then it's going to be easy for them to collapse down on us. So we need to improve that field goal percentage. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record on that, but it's important if we want to be successful, particularly as we go up against better competition. So I'm excited for the battle for Atlantis. Again, that starts next Wednesday. That's the 27th of November. Our first game's at 2:30. Potentially our next game will definitely be Thursday, but it could be 1:30 if we win. It would be 6:30 p.m. if we were to lose. And then the next game would be Friday the 29th, either at 2 p.m. If we're on the winner side, or at 7 p.m. if we're on the loser side, I suppose. Well, it depends. If we lose in the second round, then we'd be playing either 9:30 p.m. or 11:30 a.m. So could be all over the place. You just have to stay tuned, follow the tournament. So that's next Wednesday. We start with Battle for Atlantis. Want to see Brandon Robinson back. Want to see greater flow with the offense. Defensively, though, on the flip side of the slower pace that we've had, this is only the second time in the Roy Williams era that we've held our first four opponents under 65 points for 4 games. So there's some good things there. I think we're hustling. I don't think we're a defensive juggernaut at this point, but I think that we're playing really well defensively. We're getting at teams, making it difficult for them. Despite the fact that in last night's game, Elon did come out hot. Usually when that happens and I see that happening, I get a little concerned. I'm like, oh gosh. But at the same time, I think they can't continue this all game long. I think they hit their first 3 threes. They started the game with an easy layup, and it was like, what is happening? But sure enough, they cooled off and they shot pretty low percentage in the second half. So defensively, we're looking solid, although that can improve, I'm sure. And offensively, we've got to get better and improve free throw percentage, improve field goal percentage, continue to rebound and crash the boards like we always do, but get out on the break more, make easy baskets, running off of misses, getting more hands in passing lanes, getting some steals. We need to get those easy baskets. That's going to improve confidence. That's going to help us increase the pace of play, get more possessions, and hopefully increase our point per possession. So that's all I've got here this morning. I'm really excited for next week's tournament. It'll be 3 games in 3 days, no matter the outcome of the games, but hopefully it'll be 3 wins. At this point, to be honest, I don't know how likely that might be. We definitely have to improve in order to see that, but improvement is definitely what we expect out of Roy Williams and out of UNC basketball moving into bigger competition. And I think that players like Cole Anthony, Armando Baycott, and certainly the veterans on the team are ready to rise to the occasion, playing against better competition. So we shall see. And thanks so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Hopefully we'll get in some sort of instant analysis. I did that last night on the live feed on UNC Hoops Talk Podcast Instagram. So I'm trying to do that after most games. It's a little bit tricky with some of these late tips because I'm a little bit tired. But I want to give some instant analysis while things are fresh in my mind Also, if you didn't catch my recap of the Gardner-Webb game, that's up on the UNC Hoops Talk podcast YouTube, so check that out as well. A little bit more in-depth analysis of that game. And there's still some relevant things in there talking about some of the players and how they're performing so far this season. All right, everybody, hope you have a great rest of your day. Go Heels.